Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here, coming at you from the Knife Center, and welcome to Knife AQ episode 171, the series where I answer all your questions, sharp or dull. This week, amongst our questions, we're asking ourselves, does Victorinox actually know what they're doing? All right, welcome everyone. If you're new to this series, here's the deal. We take your questions out of the comments section below these videos, pick out some good ones, and feature them. So if you've got a question and you think it deserves a chance, drop it in the comments below. Or even if you don't think it deserves a chance, but want to try it out anyway, leave it in the comments below. First question today comes from Mordecai Valdez. What are good options for knives that can be used as a spearhead? Okay, yes, let's talk about this. So, I know what you're talking about. That's the kind of stereotypical image of a survival knife being lashed to the end of the stick to be used as a spear. And typically that would be facilitated with something like flared tubes or some such pass-through in your handle, in the handle of your knife here, or something with removable scales potentially that could then be lashed to the end of a stick. Here's the thing. I would recommend you don't do that. With few certain exceptions, which I'll get to. The problem, quote unquote, with lashing your knife to the end of a stick in a true survival situation, which you didn't mention the word survival, but I'm going there because that's where this is usually talked about, is it's out there at the end of a stick. It may not be lashed on as well as you could because you might be improvising your that material as well. You're not in control of the knife. You could lose it. The stick could snap if you're using it for like self-defense against predation in the wild. And definitely don't throw it because you could really damage the heck out of your knife. And if that's your one, cornerstone survival tool in that situation, that's not a good place for you to be. But you could also lose it as well, which is also not a good place to be. There are what I would consider a few exceptions where you might want to do something like that in terms of like actually lashing your blade to the end of something. It does increase your reach, and there are times when that could be advantageous. Let's say there's something stuck up in a tree. Maybe, the classic example I think of is downed pilots. Behind enemy lines, they had to eject. Maybe their pack is caught up in a tree. They can't climb the tree, but maybe they could tie a knife up, cut the straps of their pack off the branch, get it down. Reaching something like that, whether it's a food source or your gear, whatnot, that can kind of make sense. I don't have a quote unquote problem with that. But what you can do, I am going to have a couple better options here for you. But before we get to those, the thing you can do in a self-defense situation out in a survival scenario, you've got to have a stick for your spear anyway, right? Sharpen the stick. Yeah, the point's not going to be very hard, but if you can get a fire going, you can fire harden that point. And that's something that, humans have been doing for eons before, having better solutions for a sharp end of your stick. That is what I would recommend if you can pull it off in that situation. But in the spirit of let's look at some things anyway, I do have some options for you. For instance, the cold steel Bushman. These things, as you can see, with its folded steel construction, or bent steel construction, it is folded, is kind of ready-made to be plonked onto the end of a shaft right there, a wooden shaft. And they're like $18. They're made of carbon steel, SK5, so it's good and tough for that sort of thing. And folks have been having fun with this series of knives for a long time. There's a couple of different blade shapes. They work pretty just fine as a kind of generic outdoor survival, bushcraft, whatever you want to call it, pattern. And this version, this blade shape especially, is kind of modeled after some classic, indigenous patterns. And plonk it right on the end right there. You could even, if you have some kind of improvised screw, or not even screw, if you can, Swiss Army knife skills in the outdoors, throw that on the end of the stick. You can use an awl or something on a Swiss Army knife if you have one to bore a little hole in there. Get yourself a little peg. You can hammer the peg in there and even secure it a little bit. That's pretty cool. And fun as well. The next one, also from Cold Steel, is the Spirit. Interestingly, this used to be a SOG product, and now Cold Steel and SOG are both owned by the same parent company now, and they've kind of ported over this product from the SOG lineup to the Cold Steel lineup, changed it up a little bit in the process, but the Spirit at about 30 bucks. Steel on this, I think it is 420 stainless. There we go. And this one is double edged, so it truly, hits those spear marks quite well, as opposed to the more general purpose shape of the Bushman there. Kind of a scalper shape going on too. That's kind of fun. And you've got a set screw here on the back, which I have loosened for the purpose of this video because the handle screws off, and it's designed to fit on the threads on common broom and mop handles. Again, more of a curiosity, more of a fun thing, as opposed to like a serious survival tool. And again, you didn't mention survival, but I'm going there. Likewise, the double edge isn't the best thing in a survival scenario either, because you lose the ability to manipulate that spine and do other things with that in the process. But either one of those would be a good option for doing that thing, even if that thing is not the best option to do. That tracks. That works. That's a sentence.
Whether it helps, I don't know.
Hope that helps. Next question comes from Casual Canoer. Hi, all, love the show. Thank you, sir. What is the purpose? Might not be a sir. We don't know. What's the purpose of a bolster on a folding knife? Why are they so common on the classic knife styles, aka Stockman, Trapper Canoe, etc.? I've also noticed that a lot of the KnifeCenter exclusives have titanium boosters, such as your Pyrite and the Echo. Is it more than just looks? Can't find a good answer. Thanks. The short answer is it depends. Let's start with classic slip joint pocket knives. It's something you saw a lot, especially on Barlow knives. And while today a Barlow can be just as high-end and exotic as the next classic slip joint, for instance, this is made by Boker. This is their oak tree Barlow. You've got a bog oak handle, which is really cool material. You've got, I was about to say Damascus blade. It's an acid wash blade, but what is the steel? C75 carbon. So that's roughly $10.95. Nothing super exotic there, but certainly a classy, fancy knife. But Barlows weren't always seen as like the fancy knife. Barlows were often like the cheapest, or among the cheapest pocket knives that could be purchased back in the day. And part of that was sacrificing on materials. They didn't always have the strongest or the nicest pieces of wood. So often the bolster would be there to reinforce that pivot. It gives some strength, some structure to the material, so it's gonna work. Nowadays, it does the same thing, even though this is not an inexpensive knife. Now it's more about style, is the reason we still make Barlows today and make high-end Barlows today. But that is what is going to do for you on classic slip joints. In terms of the Pyrite, for example, the construction here is, of course, different. Of course, it's a button lock. We've got steel liners, we've got onlays technically, and we've got titanium bolsters here, which are actually just another set of onlays, really. You can see they're attached to the steel liners right there. And does that actually reinforce the pivot? Yeah, probably. Maybe it's maybe more sturdy than other materials could be, but the reason we're doing this, the reason a lot of things like this are done, is probably more for aesthetics. But check out the aesthetics on the knife like that. Titanium, like 73 bucks for this knife with a RPM 9 blade, solid material, fun action, good design, burlap handles. I'm rambling a little bit because it is a cool knife. So yeah, I would venture to say it's just an aesthetic choice for that type of construction. Another type of construction to look at, another Barlow, the Urban Barlow, designed by Brad Zinker, and this knife is made by Boker as well. It's kind of cool to see the Barlow evolution right there. So we refer to this knife as having titanium bolsters, but it doesn't really, because it's actually a single piece of titanium with a pocket at the back that's been milled out and inlays or onlays stuck on the back right there. So you can say it's an integral bolster right there. Yeah, okay, sure, fine. But it's actually just the structure of the knife. It's not any material that's bolstering the handle because it's just the handle. And that is a strong construction right there because it is titanium. But again, because it's not actually a bolster, the bolster isn't doing anything. But again, it is an awesome knife. This version here with K390 steel, awesome edge retention here, $260, KnifeCenter exclusive. Check it out.
Hope that bolsters your arguments.
Hope that bolsters your arguments. Sure. All right, now we get to the question that I teased before the intro graphic from Mitch Hi-Fi. Victorinox are no longer making them with knives, so the Swiss Army tool they now are, rather than the Swiss Army knife. Yeah, so this is something that's been making the rounds on the internet lately, definitely stirring up kicking up a bit of a hornet's nest, because Victorinox have indeed confirmed that they are going to be coming out with some tools that don't have a knife blade on them. And here's the problem with a lot of articles on the internet. They're not written, headlines can be deceiving. I've seen things like, Victorinox is ditching the knife in their iconic Swiss Army knife, this, that, and the other. And I've seen all kinds of accusations of they're losing the plot, they're going woke, whatever that means to you, or it's part of some master plan to get us to not carry knives anymore. And to all those folks, I would say this: let's all take a step back, take a deep breath, and lower the temperature just a little bit. So my response is this. Number one, and I have them written down here so I don't forget, contrary to some speculation and some accusations that have been leveled, no, Victorinox is not getting rid of the Swiss Army knife. They are simply introducing some new models that don't have the knife. And I'm sure we are definitely going to be seeing some new models in the future that do have knives too. Number two, this concept for Victorinox isn't even new. We've got, knives, quote unquote, like the Jet Setter right here, toothpick and tweezers, combination tool on one side, a pair of scissors on the other, no knife blade. So it's already here, and it did not trigger the apocalypse. So that's a nice thing. And number three, to me, this looks like purely a business decision, not some kind of ideological statement. There are places, especially in Europe, aka Victorinox's backyard, where carrying a knife for many reasons can be a little more complicated than in other areas of the world. Whether it's due to legal regulations, cultural pressure, travel restrictions, any combination of the three. And if you were a business, Victorinox makes, I don't know exactly how many they make in a year, but millions every year. And let's say a market like the EU. I'm making these numbers up right now, but let's say you used to sell 5 million knives in the European Union previously, and now you only sell 500,000. Well, if I were a business and I can't reverse those laws, or perhaps more importantly in this case, change those societal trends which are keeping people from buying your product, I'd want to make a new product that they could or would buy instead to bump those numbers back up. Nothing nefarious about that I can see. Now, here in the USA, even though I can carry a knife most places I go, notice the word most. I'm glad they're doing this. I'm glad, I sure hope these products are going to be available in the US. There's nothing we've heard to indicate that they wouldn't be. I'll pick this back up again. Now for me, the Jet Setter is a good example. I don't like to check a bag when I fly if I can avoid it. So having some kind of tool that, less about meeting my needs while on the plane, but being able to take it to my destination, I'm probably going to buy a few of, whatever tools they come out with, or whichever one fits me the best. And what about folks whose jobs prohibit knife blades? Think about people who work in a courthouse every day. Swiss Army knife might be useful if it didn't have the knife. Secure facilities, government buildings, what have you. I think it's a lot of cool things going on. I'm glad they're doing this. Now, here's the fun part. Because they don't exist yet, we get to imagine. So I'm going to ask you what your travel-friendly, we'll call it for lack of a better word, what would your ideal bladeless Swiss Army knife, quote unquote, look like? For me, I would start, for my needs, with something like the Explorer right here. Remove the layer with the 2 knife blades and remove the awl on the back as well. I wouldn't want to contend with that sharp edge either if I were taking this through airport security. So what are you left with? You've got a pair of scissors, essential, excellent. You've got the cap lifter and can opener, each with their respective screwdriver tips. You've also got a nice inline 3D Phillips screwdriver, and as a bonus for me, the magnifying glass. I probably wouldn't use that as much, but this screwdriver on here is way better than the T-handle configuration that a lot of them come with when they do have a Phillips screwdriver. This is just quite good. And then throw on the plus scale, so you got the ballpoint pen on there. That would be great. Give me the version of the hook that has the nail file on the back. That would be cool too. I think that would make a really sweet baseline travel tool for me. If you wanted to expand it from there, check out some of these extra tools. Maybe instead of the Phillips driver and magnifying lens, throw on like the Cybertool style bit driver and extra bits. That would be pretty sweet. And if you want to add an extra layer onto it, as opposed to going with the slimmer construction you would get by removing the knife layer there, the file I think would be a pretty sweet addition for me. Anyway, that's my bladeless Swiss Army knife dream of choice. What would yours be? The only rules I put for myself on this would be just using implements that already exist for whatever frame size of knife you're looking at. Who knows? They may come out with some new implements on these, but if not, stick to what exists. And tell me what yours would be.
3 bottle openers and a 10mm socket.
Have you ever lost a bottle opener?
Not about to.
How many 10mm sockets have you lost? Maybe you should reverse it, like 1 bottle opener and 3 10mm sockets.
I could just buy multiple of the same copy.
There you go. Well, now we come to our lightning round for today. First question is Javen248. Does an Opinel float? Well, we're going to find out today. I have some water here. Be careful I don't spill it onto the computer over here. And I'm going to put my carbon steel bladed Opinel number 8 on the line. We're going to find out. And then I'm going to have to go as soon as we're done filming here and dry it out and lubricate it and everything so that the wood doesn't swell and the steel doesn't rust. I genuinely don't know the answer to this question, so let's find out together, shall we? Well, I think we need more water. No, so it's definitely being dragged down on the metal side. Thomas, is this showing up through the screen there?
Mostly.
But the tail end here is floating up. So it wouldn't float on the surface of the water in any case. I'm sorry, old guy.
Probably okay if you drop it in the pasta pot.
Why pasta?
What else do you boil?
Potatoes.
There.
Oatmeal.
Fried potatoes.
It would definitely float in oatmeal, I would think, because that's more like quicksand. Anyway, I'm sorry. No, I'm nervous. Let's finish up this video real quick so I can go, shut up. So I can go clean the Opinel.
It's complaining.
It sure is, and has every right to. All right, next question in the lightning round comes from John P. Most recommended cutting board material or type of wood best for not dulling an edge? Wood. I know you asked type of wood. Honestly, the softer the wood, the less likely it will be to damage your knife edge. But I wouldn't stress about any kind of commercially available, standard wood cutting board. That's going to be the best choice, the kindest to your edge that I know of. There are some new synthetic, like rubber-like materials that are supposed to be pretty good, but I personally haven't had any experience with those, so I can't vouch to whether they're kinder for your edge or not. But wood cutting boards have long been the gold standard. The Richlite stuff, like the Epicurean boards, is not bad, but it is a little harder. The plastic boards out there can range in hardness from stuff that I consider okay to stuff that's too hard in my opinion. But whatever you do, please avoid cutting on glass cutting boards. Glass cutting boards are for presentation, not for utility. Same thing with stone cutting boards. I mean, stone sharpens a knife. Stone can dull a knife just as easily if you're cutting down into it. Disadvantage, of course, is a wood cutting board can't be thrown in the dishwasher. So for me, I have a few wood cutting boards, but I only use them in some more limited scenarios where cleanup's going to be pretty easy. I tend to use just plastic cutting boards most of the time myself. But that's a personal choice. Hope that helps. Well, now we come to our final question of the day, which is, of course, our most serious question of the day, which today comes from Jonathan Mason. Need help choosing a blade for a duel so I can usurp the Emperor's throne, avenge my father, and liberate a desert planet. Long live the fighters. Didn't you mean to say, may your knife chip and shatter? Well, here's the thing. Since We Knife Company doesn't make the Arrakis anymore, how about the Kershaw Doom? It's slim, it's concealable, so you can deploy it at the time that is most advantageous to you. And bonus points, it even kind of looks like the blades that they used in the new Dune movies. Hope that helps. And best of luck to you. Well, that's all we have time for today, folks. Keep your questions coming, and let me know what you thought of the answers to these. If you've got any alternates, let me know down below. And let me hear your thoughts on your bladeless Swiss Army knife of choice. I don't know why I put bladeless in air quotes. The knife should have been in air quotes.
Knifeless.
Knifeless Swiss Army knife. Let me know your configuration down below. If you want to get your hands on any of these knives, make sure you check out the links in the description. That'll take you to KnifeCenter.com, where don't forget about our long-running Knife Rewards program, because the least thing we can do when you buy one of our knives today is give you some free money to spend on your next one. I'm David C. Anderson again from the Knife Center. That's Thomas behind the camera, and we are signing off. See you next time.
What about a big Chris?
Chris knife.